Let's talk about why it is difficult to measure your progress in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. Why oftentimes it feels like you're continually pushing this impossibly heavy, difficult boulder up a hill and seeing no progress. It's a very common experience, and I'm going to explain my thoughts on that. Also, I got a black eye, and if you're wondering, was it from this tournament where you competed in multiple expert divisions? The answer is no. Was it the day after, immediately in training, when you bonked it on the back of the head of a 13-year-old boy? Yes, it was. So, now that that's out of the way, let's get into the video and discuss why it's difficult to measure your progress in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. Progress is never linear, so sometimes before you get better, you have to get worse. Before you're able to get more submissions, you have to stop jumping on the easy one you usually get and instead work on one that you're not very good at that takes time, so your submission rate goes from a few a night to 0 because you're working on something else. Then, on top of that, progress doesn't go up in a straight line, it zigzags up and down. You're trying to measure your overall progress, for the most part, against people in the gym, against people who are also getting better day in and day out. So you can't really measure your progress that way. It's very common for people, especially around the late white belt, early blue belt period, to feel exceptionally discouraged because they're experiencing exactly this. They're training day in and day out, but it feels like they're not getting any better. Especially when they start comparing themselves to some of the upper belts, it feels like they've made absolutely zero progress against them. Like on day one, the upper belts could just do whatever they wanted to them, and now the upper belts can still do whatever they want to them. It's very frustrating because even if they're training like 3-4 times a week, it's still not enough to catch up to these upper belts, and you're like, I'm not getting any better. But the truth of the matter is, not only are you getting better, the upper belts are also getting better, and it's easy to forget that when you're in the gym and you're looking around to compare yourself, because that's what people do. We look around and we compare ourselves. But here's a sneaky little secret that you may not hear from some of the other upper belts. Even though it feels the same for you, even though on your end, if you're a white belt, it feels like you could try as hard as you want and the upper belt could do whatever they wanted to you, and now 4, 6, 7 months later, it's the same thing. You can try as hard as you want, but the upper belt can still do whatever they wanted to you. For the other person's experience, for the purple belt, for the brown belt who's been beating you up, they, when they first started rolling with you, were probably going exceptionally easy. They probably were like just barely resisting, moving around, and that might feel a little insulting, but that does happen if you have a significant skill gap against somebody. Then, as you start to progress, the upper belt may have to turn it up from like a 3 or a 4 to like a 5 or a 6. They might have to transition from their first attack that they've hit you with 20 times to now their second or third attack. So it still feels like you're getting smashed because you are, but you're not getting smashed with option 1. You're not getting smashed when there's 0 resistance against you. You're getting smashed against more and more resistance, and they just have a larger skill tank, I suppose, to dive into. So they have more to fall back on when things get tough. You actually are progressing against the upper belts, usually. If you're training more than people, you're progressing faster than them. That just sort of is how it goes. It's about experience and training over time, and all that adds up to your overall skill level. So if people try to compare themselves against their training partners and that doesn't work, well, what can you do? First of all, you could try to master the art of not caring at all about your progress and just enjoying it for the training, for the exercise, for the camaraderie, and that's how you'll stay the longest. But at the end of the day, you still like to see that you're getting progress. I mean, that's why people have the belts and the stripes. It's sort of a progression marker. You get to see what's going on. Those are only a reflection of your real skill. So how do you measure your real skill progress? Because even if it's just like objectively, you want to see what's going on, not to stroke your own ego or play any games. You just want to know, hey, am I getting better? How do you do that? Well, the way I would say is optimal is measuring against people who are brand new in the gym. So if someone comes into the gym that's new and is about your size, if you're able to spar with them and realize how easy it is, you'll understand that you're making a bunch of progress. And that's all fine and dandy. Everybody's beat up the day 1 white belts. Please don't beat up the day 1 white belts. Let them enjoy the sport of jiu-jitsu and get into it. But everyone's had some good rolls with new people to see their own progress, because before, when someone was much bigger than you and you didn't train, You'd be like, oh, that person could probably beat me up in a roll or in a fight, and they probably could. But now with some training, hopefully a more bigger, stronger person, if they don't have any training, you should be able to beat them. So that's one way. Another way is going to be competitions. And the reason why I say competitions is because you're going to be able to objectively measure your skill against a random population of the jiu-jitsu belt that you're in, of the weight class that you're in. And if you start competing long enough, you'll actually start to go against people who you've grappled against before. So it's kind of cool when this happens. Like, you start to have like competitive, friendly rivals. Like, you've grappled against the same guy 4 or 5 times. You're like, hey man, what's going on? Let's go for it, you know? So if you're able to lose against somebody and then come back later on and win, that's probably the best way to measure your progress. Now, if you don't go against the same people again and again in the white and the blue belt divisions, oftentimes there's enough people to where you might not see that. You can measure your progress from tournament to tournament. So if you start off by getting 0 wins, like you lose every single match and score 0 points, you can start measuring your progress of the next competition. You're going to score a few points. Maybe you're going to win a match or 2. Then you want to win by submission. Then you want to win gold. Then you want to submit everybody and win gold in all your divisions. And by the time you make it to the very top of this bracket, chances are you'll get thrown at the bottom of the next one. That's how it goes. But competition and visiting gyms, that would also be a good way to measure your own progression. If you feel like you aren't getting any better, go roll against some people at a different gym. Because oftentimes what's happening is the moves you've been working on, the moves you've been trying again and again, your training partners are starting to see them. They've seen it about 30 or 40 times, and even if consciously they're not thinking about defenses to stop it, which in my opinion they should be game planning against you, because that's really how you get better. They're subconsciously going to be building up some defenses. They're going to be like, okay, subconsciously when this happens, I know that I'm in danger, so I'm going to tuck a little bit differently or roll a little bit differently. So your moves are just going to be harder and harder to get. But if you go do drop-ins at other gyms, these people won't have seen your A game. So chances are you'll be able to get moves working again, and it's a really good way to like test different things out. If your gym has like affiliates or something you could go visit as well, that might be a good way to do it. You might have to drive a little bit, but it's worth it if you do it once a month, once every other month. The biggest thing is people are in a speedboat and they're racing down and they're looking at all the other speedboats that are racing down in this huge ocean, and they're like, I'm not making any progress. Meanwhile, you've gone like 27 miles, but you're just neck and neck with this other speedboat and you feel like you're not getting better. That's, you are one speedboat, your training partners are another speedboat, and the ocean is the skill gap of jiu-jitsu, and you're both racing through it, but you're making so much small progress because essentially you can infinitely get good at jiu-jitsu. There's almost no maxing it out. There's always things you can do and get better at. But you can't measure your progress against a moving target. But the second you pass an island, the second you pass someone who stopped training, who used to be training before, who took like a really long 6-month break while you continue to train, until you go against people from a different gym, whether in competition or in drop-ins. Those are the stationary targets, the people who aren't moving relative to you, that you'll be able to measure your skill against. And for me, if you have a way to measure your skill and see yourself getting better, that's actually really encouraging to stick with it, because people like to see progress. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's why people have belts. That's why people like to see themselves doing well in things. It's good. So hopefully you learn something. Hopefully you don't drop out because you feel like you're not getting any better. It's a very common occurrence. If you want to support the channel, YouTube stuff down below, like, comment, subscribe, boosts me in the algorithms a lot. If you disagree with me, please write comments down below, because every single time someone writes an angry comment, that definitely boosts me in the algorithms, because then I'll respond to them and they'll respond to me and I get a lot of engagement. So thank you for everyone who's helped me game the algorithms. It's kind of cool where I'm at in this stage in my YouTube career. I've got about 200 or so subscribers, and it feels like I keep getting more because some videos that I've made are getting boosted in the algorithms because people are liking them, they're commenting on them. And I used to feel like I was just making videos and posting them out in the void. But now every once in a while I get a notification on my phone and like so-and-so commented like, this is super insightful, or cool video, or you suck for X, Y, and Z. And all of those are awesome because they give me a different chance to engage, and like, it's so much better than just making something and seeing like 6 views, 0 views for a really long time. It's encouraging. This is like a mark of progress for me in YouTube. It sees that it's like pretty objective that I got like 0 views and now I'm getting like 100, 200. That's really awesome. And thank you. if you've stuck it around this far, hear me keep rambling, you're giving me the best form of YouTube help you can, and that's the engagement, that's the watch time. So I am trying to study the algorithms, trying to study the game of YouTube, and hopefully this would supplement my jiu-jitsu one day. That would be incredible. That'd be the dream. So thank y'all if you stuck it around. I really appreciate it. Helps me more than you know. That's all I gotta say. Peace.